point in your life where you worried about things that just was sort of a waste of time to worry about?
For decades, she has lived under the unforgiving glare of Hollywood's spotlight. Every smile, every heartbreak, and every wrinkle has been dissected by an audience that often forgets the woman behind the image. But now, at the age of 56, Jennifer Aniston, the actress who defined an era of television and became an enduring symbol of Hollywood beauty, has decided to shatter the silence that has followed her for so long. What she has revealed is not only startling but profoundly human. It is a confession that has stunned the world, yet at the same time it has deepened the respect we hold for her resilience. So, what exactly is this truth that Jennifer Aniston has chosen to share? The answer takes us back to the very beginning of her story. Jennifer Joanna Aniston was born in 1969 in Sherman Oaks, California, into a family that appeared glamorous from the outside but was fractured within. Her father, John Aniston, was a recognizable face in American soap operas, and her mother, Nancy Dow, was a model and actress. To the world, it looked like the young Jennifer had been handed the keys to a charmed life. But behind closed doors, her childhood was anything but golden. From an early age, Jennifer was subjected to the kind of criticism no child should endure. Her mother, by all accounts, was relentlessly critical of her daughter's appearance. She pointed out flaws, commented on weight, and rarely offered words of approval. For Jennifer, home was not a safe haven of unconditional love, but a battleground where self-esteem was constantly under siege. These early wounds were not fleeting. They carved deep impressions on her psyche, leaving scars that would shape her sense of identity well into adulthood. The tension between mother and daughter escalated over the years until it reached a breaking point. In a move that would shock Jennifer to her core, her mother published a tell-all book about their family life. The release of that book was not just an invasion of privacy, it was a betrayal. For Jennifer, who was by then climbing the rungs of stardom, the sting of having her most private pain exposed for the public to consume was devastating. In response, she made a decision that was as painful as it was necessary. She cut off contact with her mother. What followed was a silence that lasted for 15 years. It would be easy to paint Jennifer as hardened by these experiences, but the truth is more complex. Those formative years of rejection and longing for approval created in her a paradoxical spirit, one that was both fiercely independent and deeply yearning for love. She became a woman who could hold her own against Hollywood's most daunting challenges, yet who carried within her a quiet, almost childlike hope for acceptance. Before Jennifer Aniston became one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, she lived a life that bore little resemblance to Hollywood glamour. In her early 20s, she was not walking red carpets, but instead juggling jobs that barely paid the rent. She waited tables in dimly lit restaurants, answered phones as a receptionist, and even worked as a telemarketer, cold calling strangers who often hung up on her before she could finish a sentence. For a young woman dreaming of the big screen, these experiences were humbling, but they also built a resilience that would serve her well in the cutthroat world of entertainment. Her initial attempts to break into acting were far from triumphant. Jennifer landed parts in a series of television shows that failed to find an audience. By 1993, she had appeared in several pilots that were either canceled after a single season or never made it past the testing stage. Friends and industry insiders whispered that perhaps she was destined to remain on the sidelines. It was a period marked by rejection, and Jennifer herself later admitted that she considered leaving acting altogether to find a more stable career. But fate, as it so often does in Hollywood, intervened. In 1994, she auditioned for a role in a new sitcom that NBC executives were tentatively calling Friends Like Us. The show was centered around 6 young adults navigating life and love in New York City. Initially, Jennifer was considered for the role of Monica Geller, but after producers saw her natural charm and comedic timing, they urged her to read for the part of Rachel Green instead. What followed was lightning in a bottle. When Friends premiered, it didn't take long for audiences to fall in love with Rachel, the spoiled yet endearing runaway bride who slowly grew into an independent woman. Jennifer's nuanced performance gave Rachel both humor and heart, making her relatable to millions. Almost overnight, Jennifer Aniston became a cultural icon. Women copied the Rachel haircut. Magazines chronicled her every move, And suddenly, the young woman who had once feared obscurity was now navigating the complexities of global fame. Yet fame, as intoxicating as it can be, came with a price. Behind the scenes, Jennifer grappled with the enormous pressure of carrying not just a beloved character, but an entire generation's expectations on her shoulders. There were whispers about her personal life, relentless paparazzi stalking her every outing, and the cruel tendency of tabloids to reduce her achievements to gossip about her relationships. It was as though, in exchange for adoration, the world demanded complete access to her private self. Still, Jennifer's career flourished. While Friends made her a household name, she refused to be boxed in by a single role. Determined to prove she was more than just Rachel Green, she took on diverse projects. In 2002, she delivered a surprising performance in The Good Girl, portraying a small-town woman yearning for something more than her monotonous life. The role earned her critical acclaim and silenced doubters who had pigeonholed her as just a sitcom actress. From there, she continued to build a versatile portfolio. In 2003, she starred opposite Jim Carrey in the smash hit Bruce Almighty, a film that showcased her ability to balance comedy with sincerity. Years later, in 2018, she captivated audiences with her performance in Dumplin', playing a former beauty queen navigating a complicated relationship with her daughter. And then, in 2019, she took on what many consider one of the most defining roles of her career, Alex Levy in The Morning Show. This Apple TV Plus series not only brought her a new wave of accolades, including a Screen Actors Guild Award, but also demonstrated her remarkable staying power in an industry notorious for discarding women once they reach a certain age. At a time when many actresses struggle to find meaningful roles, Jennifer reinvented herself yet again, cementing her place among Hollywood's most respected and enduring talents. Along the way, she amassed not only critical recognition, but also financial success. With a net worth estimated at more than $320 million, she became one of the most powerful and wealthiest figures in the entertainment world. But money, as Jennifer herself has often implied, was never the true measure of her success. What mattered more was the ability to keep evolving, to stay relevant, and to tell stories that resonated with audiences across generations. If Jennifer Aniston's career has been a story of triumphs, her personal life has been an epic constantly rewritten by the press, critics, and fans alike. Few celebrities have had their relationships dissected as relentlessly as hers. The fascination wasn't simply about romance. It was about how Jennifer's love life became, unfairly, a public referendum on her womanhood. In 2000, she married Brad Pitt, one of Hollywood's most celebrated leading men. The wedding was a lavish Malibu affair, complete with fireworks that lit up the Pacific sky. To the outside world, it was the perfect union, America's sweetheart and the golden boy of the silver screen. Yet, behind the carefully curated images, cracks began to show. Both were navigating demanding careers, often spending months apart. Friends of the couple later revealed that the distance wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. When their marriage ended in 2005, the world erupted in speculation. Almost immediately, tabloids spun a narrative. Jennifer didn't want children, and Brad did. The storyline was simple, dramatic, and convenient, but it was also false. Jennifer, years later, would confess that the end of her marriage had little to do with motherhood and everything to do with two people growing apart. Still, the damage was done. The label of the woman who didn't want kids clung to her like a shadow she could never escape. What few knew at the time was that Jennifer had long harbored dreams of becoming a mother. Throughout her 30s and 40s, she quietly sought medical help, undergoing rounds of IVF and exploring every option available. Friends close to her say those years were some of her most emotionally taxing. Imagine the heartbreak. Smiling for cameras at red carpet events while privately enduring the physical pain and emotional toll of fertility treatments. There were nights, reportedly, when she would return home from glamorous premieres only to break down in tears, her public mask finally slipping in the safety of her own walls. But the press never cared for nuance. With each passing year, the headlines grew more cruel, portraying her as the career-obsessed woman who chose not to be a mother. Jennifer's relationships after Brad were scrutinized through the same lens. When she dated Vince Vaughn, the comedic actor from Wedding Crashers, the public dismissed it as a rebound fling. Her romance with musician John Mayer drew more criticism than warmth, as tabloids painted her as unlucky in love. And then, in 2015, came Justin Theroux. The actor and screenwriter seemed, at least briefly, to be the partner who could silence the noise. Their wedding was intimate and secretive, a stark contrast to her publicized Malibu nuptials with Brad. For a while, Jennifer appeared genuinely content. They shared a New York apartment, were often spotted strolling hand in hand, and even gave interviews about the joy of finding companionship later in life. But by 2017, the marriage unraveled. The official reason cited was irreconcilable differences, but insiders whispered about the pressures of distance, conflicting priorities, and, once again, the unrelenting burden of public expectations. As if the heartbreak of divorce weren't enough, the media weaponized her personal choices. Too focused on career, selfish, unwilling to sacrifice. These were the words splashed across covers of magazines. For Jennifer, it was more than just gossip. It was a suffocating narrative, one that sought to define her worth not by her artistry, not by her resilience, but by the presence, or absence, of children. In 2016, Jennifer decided she had had enough. She penned an essay for the Huffington Post, a blistering critique of the tabloids and the culture that fueled them. "For the record, I am not pregnant," she wrote. "What I am is fed up." It was a rare moment when she turned her silence into defiance, calling out the sexism and double standards that had haunted her for decades. In doing so, she spoke not only for herself, but for countless women who had been reduced to their ability, or inability, to bear children. Still, even as her words resonated worldwide, the whispers persisted. Imagine the loneliness of knowing that no matter how loudly you spoke, people would hear only what they wanted to believe. Imagine the ache of scrolling through headlines that treated your deepest struggles as entertainment. Friends later shared that Jennifer often retreated to her secluded Bel Air home during these storms, finding solace in her dogs, her art, and the company of a tight circle of trusted confidants. And yet, through it all, she refused to let bitterness define her. She kept working, kept laughing, kept showing up. She continued to embody the paradox of strength and vulnerability, a woman who, despite heartbreak and relentless scrutiny, still managed to radiate warmth on screen and off. It is this very combination of resilience and fragility that makes Jennifer Aniston's story so compelling. Because while many saw only the failed marriages and the childless narrative, the truth was infinitely more complex. She was a woman who had loved deeply, who had tried desperately, and who had endured more than the public would ever know. It took decades of scrutiny, endless speculation, and a lifetime of carrying expectations that were never hers to bear. But now, at the age of 56, Jennifer Aniston has finally spoken words that the world wasn't prepared for, yet desperately needed to hear. She has accepted a reality that once haunted her. She will not have children. For years, this fact was whispered as gossip, framed as tragedy, or twisted into a narrative of selfishness. But for Jennifer, admitting it out loud was not a moment of defeat. It was an act of liberation. "I spent so much of my life fighting against a story that wasn't mine," she confessed in a recent interview. "For a long time, I thought I had failed. But I see now, I didn't fail. I lived, and I'm still living." The weight of those words cannot be overstated. Imagine being hounded for decades by cameras zoomed into your stomach, strangers speculating about your body, headlines declaring pregnancies that never existed. Imagine enduring fertility treatments in silence, the heartbreak of disappointment, and the agony of seeing your pain commodified into glossy magazine covers. To finally declare, "This is who I am, and this is my truth," is nothing short of revolutionary. And yet, Jennifer's admission was not drenched in sorrow. Instead, it was imbued with a sense of calm acceptance. She made it clear that her life was not lacking, that her worth was not diminished. "Motherhood comes in many forms," she said. "And for me, it has been about nurturing friendships, mentoring younger women in this industry, and loving deeply. Whether it's people or my dogs, I am not empty. I am full. For the first time, the narrative shifted. Not from her publicists, not from tabloids, but from Jennifer herself. She was no longer the woman denied motherhood, nor the victim of failed marriages. She was a woman standing firmly in her truth, refusing to let others define her value. But her revelation did not stop there. Jennifer also admitted something even more intimate. She no longer felt the need to chase marriage. After 2 public divorces and countless failed romances played out in headlines, she has chosen to embrace singlehood not as a stigma, but as a choice. "I don't feel the pressure to walk down the aisle again," she explained. "But do I believe in love? Absolutely. I still hope to find a partner, not to complete me, but to share the life I've already built." It was a rare moment of vulnerability from someone who had spent much of her career cloaked in polished optimism. And yet, that vulnerability resonated more deeply than any movie role ever could. Fans who had followed her journey for decades saw not just Jennifer Aniston, the actress, but Jennifer Aniston, the woman, fallible, resilient, and profoundly human. Behind the scenes, friends say the process of arriving at this acceptance was not easy. There were nights when Jennifer reportedly confided to her closest circle that she felt like she was living 2 lives. The glamorous celebrity adored on screen, and the private woman quietly mourning dreams that never materialized. Some nights were filled with tears, others with laughter, as she reminded herself that life, even in its imperfections, was still beautiful. And in recent years, she found new ways to redefine family. She has become a devoted auntie figure to the children of her closest friends, from Courtney Cox's daughter Coco to the kids of longtime crew members on her sets. On birthdays and holidays, she's often the one who shows up with thoughtful gifts and endless patience. She may not have children of her own, one friend shared, but she has poured so much love into the lives around her. That is its own kind of motherhood. In admitting the truth about her journey, Jennifer has also sparked a broader cultural conversation. Why, in the 21st century, do we still measure a woman's worth by her ability to bear children or remain married? Why is singlehood framed as failure rather than freedom? Jennifer's voice, amplified by her platform, has forced society to confront these uncomfortable questions. Her confession was more than personal. It was universal. It was a reminder that fulfillment comes in many forms, and that resilience sometimes looks like choosing peace over expectation. For millions of women watching, it was a lifeline. And yet, the story does not end here. Jennifer has hinted that this new chapter of her life may bring surprises the world hasn't anticipated. She has begun exploring projects that push her out of her comfort zone, directing, producing, even considering a memoir that would, for the first time, put her own voice at the center of her narrative. Friends suggest she has also been quietly involved in philanthropy focused on women's health and fertility, determined to turn her private struggles into advocacy that might ease the path for others. Jennifer Aniston's journey is more than just a Hollywood story. It's a mirror reflecting the struggles, choices, and resilience that countless women face in silence. For years, her life was treated like a public spectacle, her worth dissected by gossip columns and internet forums. Yet now, at 56, she has rewritten her own narrative. Not as the woman who missed out on traditional milestones, but as a woman who found fulfillment on her own terms. Her confession was not a surrender. It was a victory. In acknowledging that motherhood would not be part of her story, Jennifer shattered the myth that a woman's life is incomplete without children. She stood against decades of judgment and reclaimed the narrative that had long been stolen from her. That kind of courage is rare in Hollywood, where image often matters more than authenticity. Imagine for a moment if Jennifer had chosen to remain silent. The tabloids would still be speculating. The internet would still be recycling the same tired narrative. And women everywhere would still be absorbing the subtle message that their worth is tied to motherhood or marriage. By speaking up, she didn't just liberate herself. She liberated others. It's easy to underestimate how powerful such a confession can be. but the ripple effects are undeniable. Women from across the world flooded social media with messages of support, many admitting that Jennifer's words gave them strength to confront their own insecurities. Some even shared stories of failed fertility treatments, of divorces, of lives that didn't unfold according to society's script. And in Jennifer's honesty, they found solidarity. Of course, Jennifer's life is still enviable by any measure: success, wealth, fame, and influence. But what makes her story universal is not the glitter of Hollywood, it's the vulnerability. It's the nights of doubt, the mornings of resolve, the decision to stand tall when it would have been easier to hide. Those moments are what connect Jennifer Aniston to millions who will never know what it's like to walk a red carpet, but will absolutely know what it feels like to be judged unfairly. In a world obsessed with labels, wife, mother, single, divorced, Jennifer has chosen a different path. She has shown that fulfillment can come from friendship, from creativity, from giving love freely without expecting it to conform to societal molds. She has proven that it's possible to redefine success not by what you lack, but by what you embrace. And maybe that's the message we should all take away. Happiness is not a formula. It's not a checklist of milestones to tick off before time runs out. It's a deeply personal journey that looks different for everyone. For some, it's marriage and children. For others, it's art, career, travel, or community. For Jennifer, it's the freedom of finally being herself, without apology. Her story challenges us to ask uncomfortable questions. How often do we project our expectations onto others? How many times have we judged someone for the choices they made or didn't make, without ever knowing the battles they fought in private? And most importantly, what does fulfillment look like for us? Jennifer Aniston's life may be extraordinary, but her truth is universal. You do not need to meet anyone else's standards to live a full, meaningful life. So now, dear viewers, we turn the question to you. What do you think of Jennifer's courageous decision and her heartfelt admission at 56? Do you believe her story can help redefine the way we view happiness and success? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And if Jennifer's journey has inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories from the world of celebrity. Because behind every famous face lies a very human story. And it's those stories of struggle, resilience, and truth that remind us what it really means to live.